Are green vegetables and sprouts enough to get all the protein and nutrition we need? Or do we need to add beans or whole grains and nuts to our diet?
No, no. Sprouts remember, sprouts and greens are what the gorillas eat. Gorilla is the strongest creature in the world, anatomically 98% exactly like you and me. Literally in nature, take the plant out, clean the root, and eat the root, the sprout, and then eat the greens. Next, gorillas do not eat fruit. Monkeys eat fruit. And so you have to know that much of what you've been taught is nonsense. You also said, do we need beans? Guess what? Beans sprout. Nuts sprout. Grains sprout. Seeds sprout. Every time you eat any of the four I spoke about, you need to germinate them first. And now they go from something that your body has a difficult time digesting, even me, terrific digestive tract. I eat nuts and seeds, parts come out whole. And when I germinate them, that never happens because it makes it digestible for the human body, makes it into a plant, not a condensed seed. Remember, the seed was there to create a mother plant that produces thousands of other seeds or hundreds of other seeds. So it's compact. You give birth to it, let it open up, all at once it becomes quite much like a vegetable.
What are the supplements that all raw food vegans should be taking?
All people on the earth need B12. So as I pointed out earlier, this is not a vegan problem, and certainly less a raw food vegan problem. It's an everyone problem. And why that is that our anatomy has radically changed over hundreds of years. I did some research both at the Harvard Medical Library as well as NYU, where I looked at sketchings and paintings of the large intestine and small intestine from 700-800 years ago. And it looked radically different. I saw 28 different books, and it was all similar. And over time, starting 300-400 years ago, you started to see a difference in it. Anatomically, by a couple hundred years ago, it was radically different. And in the 20th century, when we started to film this, it now has become significantly different. The little pocket that used to be at the very bottom of the large intestine no longer exists. It's sort of shriveled up, and what's there is an appendix now, which somehow medicine thinks God made a mistake. It's a very important part of the lymphatic system. It actually lubricates the large intestine, and it's a major filter there. So what you have to understand is that a lot that we've been taught is wrong, and we're learning a lot. I just hope that we're willing and humble enough to change when we find new things, but sadly they institutionalize them and make it almost like religion that you can't change anything. And this is why science often creates problems, because people are rehashing something from 50, 100 years ago, because that's the law, rather than looking at the latest science. Sadly, what we know is when we find something revolutionary, it usually takes 25 to 45 years to come into the mainstream. And much of it never comes into the mainstream.
Do whole food, raw foodists ever get heart disease or heart attacks?
Sure you can, but it would be very hard to do that. And stress is as big of a culprit with heart problems and strokes as anything else. So you could be a very stressed person eating good food. Grant you it's harder to be stressed when you're nourished, but there's halfway people too. Beyond Burger, I'm happy it's around, but it's not a food. Impossible Burger, happy it's around, it's just not a food. As a matter of fact, it's genetically modified, some of this. It has high amounts of cooked oil in it, not great for you. Would I prefer people eat that than a hamburger? Yes, for a selfish reason, because at least they're not destroying the planet Earth when they're eating those, quote, foods. But the truth is, people eat a lot of that kind of garbage and they think, well, I'm not going to have a heart attack. You may have a heart attack and stroke. Will you have as many, as often as you would if you ate steak? No. Or ate fish? Yes, fish creates heart attacks. The landmark study that was done on that was done in Finland. Remarkably, the Finnish government was so competent and loving a quarter of a century ago, they said, we've got to get people off the food we're eating here in Finland. They were dying at a higher rate than Americans, which is shocking from bad diets. And they tried to move them to the fish diet, but they had legitimate scientists there in Finland at the universities, and they said, okay, let's do a control group. They took over 280,000 Finnish people. They divided them in half. Half the group ate fish and took fish oil. The other half did not. The group that took fish and fish oil had double the heart attacks and strokes. Harvard University tells you that all this stuff you hear about fish oil is completely bogus. But more important, the International Organization for Oleic Acid, essential oils, have never condoned fish oil.
If we already have root canals or implants or metal in our mouth, How do we protect ourselves from health issues related to this? Are there health issues related to this?
Well, one of my colleagues, he's at the Institute as we speak, Dr. Rao, he's an MD, runs a wonderful center, Peristalsis, in Switzerland. Before he even works on a person who's ill, he removes all of that. This is damaging and dangerous stuff. How dare them back in the 1800s tell us that mercury is bad everywhere else, but you can put it in the teeth and somehow magically that doesn't hurt you. How dare them put root canals in that actually put infections systemically throughout your body. And people come to us with cancers and heart attacks and strokes because of that. Even diabetic conditions go up more with that. So this is an area that mainstream allopathic medicine disacknowledges, somehow says the mouth is not connected to the rest of the body. Just to show them how wrong they are, your anatomy started with the mouth. When the human species started, our gastrointestinal tract in the mouth was the first thing that we were. And then everything grew out from that. Please, people, the arrogance have got to go away. I have seen so many people deadly sick, and some died, by the way, because of this unfortunate event that we called modern dentistry. The good news is there's organic or biological dentists who know a lot about this, who safely take the mercury out. Incredibly important. Do not replace it with metals. Replace it with amalgams. And the best of all are zirconias, which are what they make false diamonds out of, hard as a rock, harder than a rock, actually. So these are the things you have to know. Root canals are even more dangerous than the mercury, believe it or not. And even the implants, I have a real problem with. One of the many films I did, I was at a medical school, naturopathic medical school in London, and they asked me to do a night on dentistry. Now, I didn't know enough about dentistry, but I studied dramatically for about 2 days, and I did a pretty good job. For the lay public, not for dentists. For the lay, so you may want to look at that on YouTube. So I did it on dentistry. It was at CNM, probably 5 years ago.